والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على Dear elders, respected students of this auspicious hausa, my sisters, teachers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Again, it's an honor to be here in front of all of you. The topic for today is the most beautiful of mothers. Ajmal or Ummahat. Jamil is beautiful, Ajmal is the most beautiful of the mothers. So the topic is self-explanatory. When you talk about the most beautiful of mothers, obviously we are talking about our own mothers. My mother is here. Obviously, to everybody, their own mother is most beautiful. And it's applicable to each and every one of you. So our mothers, our spouses who are the mothers of our children. So when you talk about the most beautiful of mothers, it is self-explanatory. But I purposely chose this title, Ajmal al-Ummahat. It's an Arabic title, the most beautiful of mothers. And there's a reason for that. So there's an Arabic classical song. So it falls in the halal category. I know music there's always a question mark when it comes to music, and youths always ask which music is halal, which music is haram. So this falls in the halal category, Arabic classical music, and it's a song that is very often played on Hezbollah channels in Lebanon as a way of encouraging the mothers of the shuhada. So this is a song that was played or is still being played on Hezbollah channels. So the wordings it says the most beautiful of mothers is the one who waited for her son. These are the wordings of the song. And she is the one who waited for him. And he returned. So she was waiting for her son, and the son returned. But he returned martyred. He returned as a shaheed. So she was waiting for him. He came back, but he came back as a martyr. He came back as a shaheed. And she cried for 2 years and a flower. And she didn't isolate herself in mourning clothes. Meaning that yes, it was sorrowful, it was painful for her, but she did not isolate herself because it was a moment of pride for her. The war didn't end, but he returned. Usually soldiers only come back when the war ends, but this son of hers returned even before the war ended. The war was ongoing, but he returned as a martyr. She's a mother whose eyes don't sleep. And the song goes on. So I don't encourage you to go and listen to this, but these are the wordings. It's by a famous singer, classical, Marsil Khalifa, Lebanese singer, so Ajmal al-Ummahat, and he's done many songs, but so they play this song specifically on this Lebanese channels to encourage the mothers, those mothers who have given permission to their sons, who have given their sons to the war front to defend the Holy Land, and to tell them not to be worried. If they are victorious, they will take the credit, and even if they fall as shuhada, they'll also have to, it will be a moment of pride for them. So that's why I borrowed this title from this classical Arabic song. So when we hear of wars, so the war that is going on just now, Palestine, we see 40,000 plus people have been killed. some soldiers, most of them civilians. And now this war is extending to Lebanon. 1,000 plus people have been martyred, most of them again civilians, but a few soldiers. So usually in case of war, the credit usually goes to the men. They are the ones fighting in the forefront. So when the shaheed comes back, it is the men who take the credit. But the women behind the scenes who really encourage them, who push them, are most often forgotten and they're not mentioned. So I thought this will be an ideal opportunity for us to remember a few of these women behind the scenes who have really pushed their men to go to the war front and how they behaved when their husbands or their sons were martyred. It's something that we need to learn from. And when women prepare themselves for this role, it takes the society to another level. So it's important to take them as role models. We recall the event of Karbala in every majlis, more importantly in the months of Muharram and Safar. As much as we talk about Imam Hussein alayhi salam till the day of Ashura, but after Ashura we talk about Bibi Zainab alayhi salam, the role that she played. So these are two wings that need to be mentioned all the time together. So as much as the men are mentioned, the women behind the scenes should also be mentioned. So we do that when it comes to the event of Karbala, but when it comes to our wars of our time, we tend to forget these women. So I thought we'll mention a couple of women. So this lady here is Nidal. Her full name is Maryam Muhammad Yusuf Farhat. This lady is considered to be the mother of all the martyrs in Palestine. They've given her this title. She also became the member of parliament and she has passed away. And there's a whole National Geographic documentary made about this woman. The Western world could not comprehend what she did. So here this picture, this is her son Muhammad. So she had two sons, Muhammad and Nidal. This is Muhammad. And this photograph was taken just before she sent him for martyrdom. So she actually dressed him up and she took a picture with him just before he went for a martyrdom operation, and he was martyred. And after some time she started encouraging the second son also, Nidal. And Nidal he also became a shaheed. And the Western world could not comprehend this lady. Okay, what is she made of? How can she send her son to the battlefield? And there's a whole documentary made about her, and you can go on YouTube, you will find it. But I want to read out, there was an interview done on her, about her, and when she was asked, what is your message to the mother of the shaheeds? So in these times, they have many mothers who have their husbands or sons on the battlefield. So what message do you have? So she says, this is before she passed away. She says, I hold their hands and ask them to be patient and to remember that death by martyrdom grants the martyr entrance into paradise. This is the best death you can ask for your husband or for your own children. I pray to Allah to strengthen them because the pain is hard and not easy to forget. So she's giving out her human side. The Western world might have considered her to be superhuman. She's giving her human side. You know, it's painful and very hard to forget. But I say to all of them, despite the pain and the battles and the blood that is shed, we must continue in the way of jihad until victory or shahada. These two choices, either victory or shahada, until the entire homeland is liberated. So she's talking about the liberation of Palestine. The reward of believing Muslim will never end. This is the land of battle of Islam. and a great honor fell on us to live in it. She's not complaining about being in Palestine. Many people, when war is imposed on them, they tend to complain, why us? Look at this lady. She says, we are blessed to have been allowed to live in this land, whereby we can give sacrifices. Allah be praised, she says, Alhamdulillah, that He chose my two sons to be amongst the shuhada. So rather than complaining, now she's being thankful. The two of her sons attained shahada. Every Palestinian mother or wife must be proud and lift up her head because Allah chose her husband or her son to be amongst the shaheeds. This is the best thing in the world and in the next world. So you look at this lady, look at her mindset, look at her thought process. Indeed, a role model for all the women and for the men, I would say. So this is the first example. This is the second lady. I don't know if you've ever heard of her or you must have seen her on. Any guesses who this lady is? Very familiar. She was on the news last year sometime. So her name is Huda Jarrar. She's from the West Bank, Jenin. And she's the mother of Ibrahim Nablusi, the Shaheed who is standing behind her. 18-year-old. This boy was just 18, but he was involved in the resistance. There came a time he was surrounded by the Israelis, and they offered him, he just surrendered, everything is going to be okay. It was a genuine offer. And he said no, and he fought till the end. So this lady was interviewed, and this is what she had to say. She says, Ibrahim, that is her son, Ibrahim wanted to send a message to a specific group. So she had prepared Ibrahim in such a way that he became a role model for a certain group, to the children. She wanted Ibrahim to be a role model for the children, who will be brought up on jihad, Allah willing, inshallah. When these children see the Mujahid as a humble, loving and a truthful person who does not eat anything that is haram. This was her training that she gave to Ibrahim. She kept him away from haram. Haram in the sense haram food, but halal earning is what she gave him, what she fed him. A person who does not eat anything that is haram, they are going to love jihad. So if you want your child to love fighting in the way of Allah, so jihad does not mean only on the battlefield. This is a small jihad, but jihad with the nafs. If you want our children or ourselves to be in love with this jihad with the nafs, keep away from haram food. That's what she says. Again, alhamdulillah. If you see her video, there's nothing but alhamdulillah on her lips. Alhamdulillah, and jihad will become their way of life. Even if they do not learn it at school, even if the children do not learn it in school, this mother is saying, they're going to learn it from their role model. People who are wanted by Israel, and thanks to Allah, Ibrahim got his message across. And then she talks to Ibrahim, the Mayyit of Ibrahim, in front of her. She says, Ibrahim, you made a good deal. This was a good deal that you made with Allah. Okay? So this is another lady who can be a role model, a mother behind the scenes who brought Ibrahim into this world. Ibrahim Nablusi is a role model for so many youths in the West Bank. Third example. Any guesses who this is? Ahsan, yes. So Sheikh Zakzaki's wife, Zina Ibrahim Zakzaki, she's a mother of 9, but total 14 children. So she had 9 of her own children and 5 adopted children. So she is not a mother of 1 shaheed, not of 2 shaheed, not of 3 shuhada. She's given 6 sons. 6 of her sons were martyred. So only one son is remaining now, and I think she's given a few daughters also. And this lady is amazing. She's authored books now. The history of the Islamic movement in Nigeria, it's a must-read, a very small booklet. There's another book that has been released. And she wrote this book in prison. When she was put in prison, she was in the Nigerian prisons for the longest time. And she says that I used to narrate my story to my son, thinking that my son will narrate it one day. But then my son got martyred. He became a shaheed. So I started telling it to the second son. And I lost my second son also. So she says this sequence will not go on for very long. So she decided to put it on paper. And this is what she's written. So it's a worth read. But look at this lady, a mother of 6 shuhada. These are her 6 sons, this picture. But recently when she was interviewed, and she was told what is her opinion on what is going on in Palestine, she says, the children who are remaining, I'm ready to give them also for Palestine. So this is this lady's mindset, indeed a role model. And not that she is not grieving, not that she is forgotten. She has a human side, but there's something that she's done that has made her what she is, and she's become a role model for all women and, of course, the men. So the question comes up here, are they superhumans? Are they superhumans? Is it that God has given them a capability more? Yes, it's God-given capability to be able to tolerate this grief. But what is it that they have done to make them what they are? Of course, it's the faith in Allah. When Zina Ibrahim Zakzaki, she went to Iran recently, and she was given an opportunity to talk in front of Rahbar. So Rahbar had a lecture before that, or after that, I think she was given an opportunity to speak for 3 to 4 minutes, and she's speaking to the ladies, and she's telling them that understand the purpose of life. It's important to understand the purpose of life. Okay, once you understand that, you'll understand why Allah sent the prophets and the imams to bring this message. And in the ghaib of the imam, we have a wali al-faqih in front of us. He's our leader. So she accepted Shi'ism the time of Imam Khomeini. She met Imam Khomeini with her husband. And now she was in front of Ayatollah Khamenei, and she's telling the ladies that in the absence of Imam, if you want to follow the Imami principles, look at this man in front of you. Don't leave him. Whatever he says, understand it to the dot and follow it. You will be successful. So this is one of the secrets that she's given up. But I was specifically told today to speak about grief. We all go through grief. Grief of separation, grief of loss. In one way or the other, we lose our relatives. And these are role models. This is not easy to see a shaheed in front of you, to give your sons in the way of Allah. So that's why I chose them as role models. But how to handle grief? So there's a nice article that I read. It's a research paper, Journal for Integrated Sciences. What I liked about this journal is it takes Quran and science together. So mental health, very sorry, it's not very clear, but it's how to handle grief purely based on Surah Yusuf, chapter 12 of the Holy Quran. So in this journal, they have taken Surah Yusuf and they've taken principles from Surah Yusuf as to how Nabi Yaqub handled the grief of losing Nabi Yusuf. Although he knew that he was alive, but the years that he had to stay away from Nabi Yusuf, the way he handled grief, and they give guidelines scientifically. These are the principles that if we follow, it will be easier for us to handle grief. And when you go through these principles and you look at these role models that I have just talked about, It's amazing. They might not have read this article. I'm sure they've not read this article. But Allah has given them the tawfiq to follow these principles. And they are all followers of the Quran. Zina Ibrahim Zakzaki follows Quran to the dot. When you see her talking about the Quran, it's amazing. So the principle of, I'll read it out for you because it's not very clear on the screen. So Prophet Yaqub, when he lost Yusuf, Nabi Yusuf, first step was to accept it. So acceptance is a divine decree and a spiritual upliftment for himself. So acceptance, to accept, Allah is all wise. So the 4 names of Allah that have been mentioned in this surah. There is Latif, there is Alim, Alim and Hakim. Very often mentioned in this surah, that Allah is all-knowing and He is the all-wise. And He is Latif. He is most courteous and kind, but moment by moment, He has His attention on us. He doesn't leave us alone for a moment. The minutest of things, He's in control. And there's one name they say that has been mentioned only in this surah. It's called Ghalib, the dominant. He's always in control of his affairs. He doesn't lose control even for a moment. So whatever Nabi Yusuf went through, so Nabi Yaqub, he accepts it. And then coping responses. How did he cope? So one was proactive coping, which is very important. What is proactive coping? From this surah they say that even before Nabi Yusuf went away, or he was taken away, he rehearsed it in his mind. Nabi Yaqub rehearsed it in his mind. It is called proactive coping. So we have our children, and when we think about losing them, don't even talk about death. But families that talk about death often on the dinner tables or in their discussion groups, or they rehearse it in their mind, thinking it to be a reality, and they rehearse their response. If this happens, there's nothing wrong in thinking about it and preparing yourself in your mind. That is what Nabi Yaqub did. It's called proactive coping. So even before losing Nabi Yusuf, he had already rehearsed it. So it was easier for him he knew what the brothers were going to do. And he knew Nabi Yusuf was going to be separated. So he prepared himself, proactive. And it's a lesson for all of us. And then of course there's short-term outcomes. So crying is normal. We should cry. We should not be scared of crying. That also helps us to cope. There's another coping response which is talked about in this surah. Sabrun Jameel. Patience. And then calling for Allah's divine help. That is also a coping mechanism. So proactive, but when it happens, there's nothing wrong in weeping. But also sabrun jameel. Have sabr and call out to Allah to help you through this process. But more importantly, know that Allah has a plan in this. He is not doing it for fun. He is not doing it against you. So Noman Ali Khan describes it very well. He plays around with words. He says the whole thing did not happen to Yusuf. Whatever Nabi Yusuf went through, it did not happen to Yusuf, it happened for Yusuf. Just a different way of looking at it. It did not happen to Yusuf, it happened for Yusuf. Because Allah wanted to uplift him, that's why He put him through this trial. So him living, going into the well, coming out, the slave market, being a slave, then going to prison with all that he was accused, and then he becomes the wazir and his parents come back to him. It was not done to him, it was done for him, just to uplift him. This is a good way of, so very important to think about the long-term outcomes which is taught to us through Surah Yusuf. So the beauty about these ladies that I mentioned, if you look at them, when you send your son to the battlefield, it's very obvious. You're not waiting to lose the son, you are sending him now So you're being proactive. This is the highest level of proactivity. They're actually sending their sons towards death. So you can imagine how prepared they must be. And every night, they must be rehearsing. Anytime I'm going to get a call, you go through the biographies of all the mothers of the shuhada. They would always look at the phone. Whenever they're going, they would think about the sons all the time. But they would have rehearsed the response. Even then, it's not easy for them. So they're proactive, they cry, that is their human side. But it's sabr, highest level of sabr. This is what we learn from Karbala. And of course, when it comes to calling to Allah, they do dua all the time for Allah to help them. So when we saw what these ladies were saying, don't leave your connection with Allah. But more importantly, you see that spiritual upliftment that they go through grief. So it's not done to them, they take it as it has been done for them. They are always thankful, Allah, thank you for having chosen us to be a mother of the shaheed or to be a spouse of the shaheed. And that helps us to understand the mindset of this most beautiful of mothers. So, who is this? She resembles Razia by Jahannam, is she? She was wearing glasses when you say this, Razia. Who is this lady? So I'll give you her name. Her name is Nuhaida Safiuddin. So Nuhaida Safiuddin, we are indebted to this woman. This lady, the times that we're living in, the days that we're living in, she is the mother of Nasrullah, Nasrullah. We have to be thankful to her to have given us this character, this individual that we've known for 32 years. What haven't we learned from this man? And there's so much more to learn from him. Inshallah, when the stories come out, whatever we know is just the tip of the iceberg of this man. But what can we say about this man? But the force behind him was Nasrullah. This lady, if you see the nur on her face, she passed away recently. So there's a story that I heard from a scholar. He says that when Nabi Musa went to Allah in one of his journeys, that's where he was informed that your mother has passed away, and he wept. But then Allah tells him, you don't weep for the separation from your mother, but weep now that you'll have to work even harder. It's the mother's prayer that helps you be what you are. She passed away just 30th of May. So June, July, August, and September. Sayyid Hassan Nasrullah, what people are talking about now is how did they manage to kill him? What was used, the bunker bombs are being used, that are being talked about in the media. And intelligence, what did the Israelis do? What intelligence did they get? Has Hezbollah been infiltrated? But what people don't ask is, how did he survive for 32 years? He has escaped death for 32 years. It was the same Israel who killed his predecessor, Sayyid Abbas Musavi. And he was very young then, 32 years old, we were told yesterday by Sayyid Adil. And from that time onwards, from 1992, for 32 years he's been escaping death. Waking up every morning knowing that this could be the last day of his life. How did he survive for 32 years? Very few people are talking about it. How did he escape death? Definitely it's Allah's blessing that he stayed alive, but one of the biggest things was this beautiful woman behind his life, the mother. It could have been the mother's dua that she was praying for him all the time. Now in the absence of mother, One of the reasons. And Allah plans. Allah is always dominant on His affairs. Based on Surah Yusuf, we are the ones grieving. He has been successful. And these coping mechanisms have been given to us. We should have anticipated its death. Any leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, may Allah protect him, and all the other leaders that we have around, Ayatollah Sistani, may Allah prolong his life and may He protect him. These are all personalities who are very, very vulnerable. But the coping mechanisms that we've been given, we need to be proactive. We need to prepare ourselves. Weeping is fine, but we need to improve on our sabr. So these are leaders, but we also have family members that will lose. Nobody is going to live forever. So we need to learn to cope with grief. But this is another level altogether. If our women, if our mothers, spouses and sisters take this to another level, like these 3 women or these 4 women that I have mentioned, whereby you bring up children and you're ready to give them in the way of Allah. So if you lose them, yes, we will learn to manage it. But if you give them proactively, inshallah, you will be on another level altogether. This society will be taken to another level, inshallah. So if Allah accepts this effort of ours for this day, we dedicate it to this woman, Nuhaida Safiuddin Nasrullah. We dedicate it to her, and we dedicate it to Sayyid Hassan Nasrullah. May Allah accept it from us, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.